Why are you listening to Korn?
Game Genie, you don't know nothing about Korn.
I know about corn cobs, and this band was kind of a one-hit wonder.
One-hit wonder, dude. Whatever, man. New Metal Wednesday. Let's go.
New Metal Wednesday. More like Stinky Metal Wednesday.
Okay, Game Genie, you're done. You're cut off.
Oh, I'm just kidding. I like some Korn, especially this next song. It has dead bodies in it. Pretty cool. Although my favorite is probably Children of Korn with Ice Cube.
Yeah, that was a pretty good one, isn't it? Corn with butter, that's right. Blue Monday. Man, I forgot about Orgy. Dude, listen to that bass though. It's pretty badass.
I like slapping the bass too. Have you seen me slap the bass, Raven?
I don't want to see that.
Yeah, you don't. It's pretty bad.
I actually haven't listened to this song in probably 20 years. I want to say it's 20 years. And bunnies everywhere. Hi, chat. How you doing? Welcome on in. If you're watching this, after the fact that I streamed, you're probably wondering what I'm even talking about. We're listening to Korn. That's right. Korn was the first proper concert you went to around 1998 or 1999. They had a puddle of mud open for them. Puddle of mud. Oh, man. I got stories of puddle of mud. I've seen them, too. Free on a Bass back in Florida a long time ago. My first real show was... here's a doozy of one. All right, we had Thursday, that's right. We had Coheed and Cambria and AFI, the Death of Winter tour, and I think that was in 2006. Never really went to a concert like that until then. I saw like minor little shows in town, basically, with local bands. Yeah, that was a doozy. I still have the shirt from that. So cool. One of my favorite bands too was AFI, but that was the first time I saw Coheed and Cambria. I didn't even really know who they were at the time, and it blew my mind. I was like, oh yeah. Still in rotation on my playlist quite a bit. AFI, Thursday, and Coheed. Those albums, those past 2 years, it was like in 2005, 2006, whatever the albums were for those. I don't even remember. It was Sing the Sorrow for AfI. Today we are going to play some Borderlands instead of grinding away on Fortnite. Need a little bit of a break from it. Mik and I have been playing Borderlands 3 off stream for a couple days. Having some good fun with it, honestly. It's good fun. So we're going to play a little bit today. You guys will be able to interact. If you guys can verify that you guys have an overlay over the Twitch stream, there should be an overlay that you can interact with Borderlands. If you want to join in, there's a way to do it, I believe, by just activating it on there. And then you're able to, what is it? You're able to summon us pinatas, chest. I think you can summon yourself as a badass. Kind of the boss mobs that are in the game, and it'll have your name on there. Tofu's done it a lot back when I think I played this in 2019 last on stream. So, but yeah, we're gonna get Mik in here and get this going. Yeah. What's up, Mik?
Hey.
Yo. Are you on the right mic?
I hope so.
There you are. You sounded far away for a second.
Yeah, I hadn't moved it in position yet.
Gotcha. Oh god, it's so loud!
What is?
Borderlands? Oh! Oh gosh! Oh, AMD! Okay. Did you see the stream title?
Yes, you want to destroy Claptrap.
Yes.
Well, unfortunately, I don't think the game will let us.
Does the extension work on your screen? On Twitch?
I do see a, let's see, Borderlands 3 Echo Cast. View the Vault Hunters profile gear and skill trees while participating in rare chest events to win free loot delivered to your game. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. I think they're able to interact with our game as well. It should be all connected. Streaming settings offline. What the heck? Hold on. Enable. Maybe there's a problem with Shift.
Are you logged into Shift?
Yeah. Refresh link. I had to unlink this last time when I was testing it. Yeah, I'm gonna unlink it and reauthorize it. Well,
Could not connect to host.
yeah.
Try to join you again.
What the heck, dude? I think I have to invite you.
Alright, there we go. So I'm not saying something because I think you said last time they could, like, what, spawn enemies or something?
Yeah, hold on. I had this set up last night, dang it. Refresh. Account failed. It's supposed to refresh. Is it broken? It might be broken. Well, maybe we'll get it working when I get into a game.
So when you go under the shift tag, so is it showing you actually online on the shift network?
Yes. Yeah. I'm online.
Okay, yeah. Huh.
Yeah,
maybe it'll work once you're in a game.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna disable it and then re-enable it maybe. There we go. It says there's no streaming. I am streaming. What the heck, dude?
You must install a Twitch extension on your Twitch account to continue.
Yeah. No extension installed. Channel title not live streaming. I am streaming. You're a damn lighter. Let's get into a game and see if that works.
Yeah.
I mean, this game came out back in 2019, so I'm wondering if something's broken.
Bounty. That would buy a lot of chew toys.
Oh, that's fine. That's possible.
Let's see. Social. I am streaming. Please wait a few minutes to refresh link. Well, I'll try it in a bit. It seems like it's connected, but it's not seeing my channel. Let's see if I'll turn it off again. Turn it on.
Oh,
2019 was not 2 years ago. Pretty wild, honestly. That's the year I went to TwitchCon too. Well, maybe something's borked with it. We'll try it soon. What were we doing last? We were doing a DLC, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're trying to rob the vault or something, or not the vault, the bank or something, casino.
Oh yeah, it was the casino one for Moxie. That's right. Okay.
Yes.
It's only been a few days, pretty much. What do we play it on weekend? Yeah, Saturday.
Yeah. And we got Timothy here. And I have a skill point to spend. Let's see.
Let's see. That's so weird. Wish they had like something that you could plug into your overlay or something. Huh. Ronnie Fanta, how you doing, dude? How was your day? And Mick, how was your day?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Pretty chill?
Yeah, work as normal.
Yeah. I had a pretty long drawn out day, but it was simple enough.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good.
Still sick from Christmas? Oof. You didn't... An email saying you didn't do well enough on an interview? That blunt? Well, I hope the job hunt gets a little bit better. I feel like everybody's having issues like that right now. Yeah, absolutely. Let's see if I can refresh this now. All right, platform was refreshed. I don't know if it's working. Doesn't say it is. Let's try that. I reset it as the overlay. Huh. So weird. Extension loading.
Like, I see the EchoCast thing, but it doesn't seem to be
Doing anything?
Well, it says, okay, so it says view the Vault Hunter's profile gear, skill tree, but then it says visible. It's got a little toggle. Then it's saying add to my channel, build an extension, manage access.
It should be
report
on
extension.
the left side of the screen. I'm pretty
No,
sure.
there's nothing on the left hand side. This is on the right hand side. It just
Yeah.
says Borderlands 3 EchoCast extension. It doesn't look like I can actually interact with it.
Huh.
Unless I have to You're granting this developer access to your Twitch user ID. Allows you know. And let me try granting access here.
Oh. Starting December 8th, 2023, we will be shutting down the functionality of the EchoCast Twitch system. Why do they still offer it on Twitch? And why is it still on the goddamn account? Well, we're going to disable that, I guess. Sorry, chat. Yeah, that was at least 3 days ago.
Well, that's just prime. Well, that's just prime. Have you anything to say? I'd say that's prime.
Evil Paul just subscribed with Prime. Yo yo yo. Almost to that magic number.
Paul's almost to 69. Hold on, we'll do a proper one. Here, I won't blur your ears with this. Evil Paul! Thank you for the subby wubby. You're almost to the nice number. Almost nice. Okay. All right, you ready to do this? Well, Tofu's going to be very disappointed that the Twitch extension doesn't work anymore. I was actually, I mean, like, I don't understand why disable it, you know? Like, was it too much, you know, for 2K? Is it 2K that made this game?
Yes?
Yeah.
No? I don't know. I think so.
Oh, Gearbox, someone. I don't know, did 2K publish it or something? I don't know.
Something like that, I think.
Watch the fishies fall. Leah's a real bully, and that's why we've been feuding. She's always pushing me around and trying to act like she's so tough. We'll show her who's tough. It's me.
Let's do music 70, sound effects 80. Yeah. Dude, yeah, like Epic could have probably kept that running for them, yeah? Maybe something really broke and they can move on with it or something. That's a possibility. Like something on Twitch changed
possibly.
or whatever and they didn't want to deal with it. Hi, Paul.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Twitch update broke it. And
Yeah.
I
mean, Twitch has
we're working on
updated a
Borderlands.
lot in the past, so it is a possibility that something is conflicting with it. But you would think that other extensions would be broken too, and they would have removed it from the extension pool on Twitch.
Yeah. That part's kind of weird.
I don't think they're giving shift codes anymore. I think the ones that are huh?
No, they still are.
Oh, they are?
Yeah, I saw a site that had a new one. I don't know. I have to.
Well, you figure, like, okay, I don't want to bitch too much, but like, you figure with Borderlands 4 coming out, that people would be trickling into Borderlands 3 again on stream. And so,
Yeah,
like,
there is.
having interaction, like, the extension even had a point or bits thing where if people did like 100 bits or whatever you had it set to, it would interact with the stream too and do something else. Like, where is it out? They originally had a rare chest event, badass event cooldown time. You could do none or 15 minutes or whatever. Pinata event, max trail event bits. I don't know what max trail is. So weird. Yeah, it was very fun on stream. That's what I was looking forward to.
Yeah, we might have to wait for Borderlands 4.
Yeah. Oh God. so loud. Hold on. I gotta turn it down. There we go. How's that, chat? All right, cool. Paul, how was your day, dude? Oh my god, I forgot how to play.
Point and shoot. The bullets go towards the enemy.
Something that broke your code? Oh no. One little number did it.
I hate when that happens.
Yeah.
That's the only downside to working with other developers.
Your weakness is known.
Don't touch the code if you don't know what you're doing.
Laughstand software tester. Man, I'm really bummed about it. All right, we gotta go play Fortnite. I'm joking. Can't interact with my stream. There's not enough games that actually do interact with Twitch, and it kind of drives me a little crazy. It's such a good way to get engagement too.
Right. Come in and pick on the streamer.
Yeah. Well, like, so I have Ring of Pain, and I'll play that every once in a while, and chat can actually draw their own card designs with it, which is pretty funny.
No, yeah, I think I've seen that before.
Yeah.
I don't think it was you, but
Yeah.
it might have been you.
Hey there, handsome.
I did it a bunch in 2022 and 2023 whenever I played it. I haven't played it since on the stream. Ooh, what'd you get?
I don't know. I opened one of these machines and this droid thing popped out. And
Dang.
moved into tons of loot.
Dang.
I don't think I've ever seen one of those before.
Hmm.
Okay, cool. No, it's one of those machines. It's just that it was alive. Huh.
Huh.
Interesting. So that's unique to this DLC, I guess.
Yeah, Bronny, I oughta bring it back, and you guys can have fun with that. It was a lot of fun. I used to have, I think Shen would draw some pretty funny ones on there.
You, yeah, I'm talking to you, deadbeat. You're really racking up the debt. Now, we could still make a deal. Hand over Timothy, and I'll set you up real nice. VIP treatment. Ooh, get free. Otherwise, that price on your head is gonna keep climbing. A lot of poor SOBs out there would love the chance to wipe the debt away with your scalp. So don't be thick. Make a deal.
Here's a big head.
Hurry it up. You could be spending money. Let's go.
We don't judge.
What if we do, though?
Sayonara, baby.
We don't judge.
Oh, shit. You might want to hit the thing.
Hit what thing?
Button. I'm in some kind of, like, car.
Oh.
Welcome to the Vice District, you broke
You'll be
degenerates.
fine. It's driving on its own anyways.
That's cool, dude.
Put a cream on whatever's itching you down there.
Ew.
Get on the damn train, stupids.
We already did.
I had no clue where Ember's at these days.
Timothy is a terrible person. I don't like him.
She's a bit of an old flame, if you catch my didn't want her paying the price that was on my head, but I also maybe didn't tell her I was leaving. Tell her Timothy needs a favor. If she tries to light you on fire, well, I guess that's on me.
Yeah, this is a DLC. It was a Mad Moxie casino mission story. Never played it before, so. Mik and I, we were doing the main story, and we ended up switching it up for a little bit. My door.
Your door?
Yeah. Ronnie just kicked it in.
A pretty boy runs most of the gangs in this casino, unfortunately, but it wasn't always like this. After the lockdown, some people tried to build a society, you know? Live in harmony. All that. They're all dead now.
I mean,
Pretty boy.
what you get for having cheap locks.
Yep.
The tower gives Pretty Boy access to the casino's security, but he wants my winning hand so he can have complete control. Food, oxygen,
Money
income.
Jack
If he
Tracker.
gets a hold of me, it's gonna be anything but pretty.
Yeah, I think all the DLC for Borderlands, each game has always been kind of the highlight because they've done some pretty crazy stuff, even in the first one. Like the zombie Zed Island one, that was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, I remember the zombie one.
Did you ever play the Telltale games from Borderlands? Yes, I played the first one. I have the second one. I saw there's tons of bad reviews on it, but I will be the judge of that. Paul, they have the Tiny Tina's game as well. That's really fun. There's a suicide wildcard. Whoa!
Fly! The hunt continues.
Oh shit, that's your mech. Sounds good. Oh shoot, there's a spinoff? That's a good show. Oh, that's my bot again. I keep on thinking he's the evil loader bot.
He does look pretty evil.
There's a chest over here too. Oh, a locker. Oh, cool.
Yeah, ask around. One of the dancers might know where Ember's performing these days.
One of the dancers, huh? Mick, are you a loot junkie?
Yes.
I figured.
Excuse me. I must speak to this dancer for a moment.
Get lost! This dancer's mine!
Oh shit.
Right.
Oh no!
Still hungry!
500 to watch a dancer. That's funny.
they were sort of deadbeats. So what are you in the market for, big spender?
I am searching for Ember.
Ember? Girl's been busy lately, lighting pretty boys' loaders on fire. But Trent might know where she's posting up.
Hey, let's go to this XXX room. Oh. Okay.
Not what I was expecting.
Let's see what this one does. Here, come over here. Oh, it's the same thing. What a rip, dude. Oh, here's a different one. I'm spending so much money on a strip bar. Or whatever this is.
There's this one too. This one doesn't seem to cost anything.
Oh, this one? Oh, wait.
Want a tangle? Name's Trent, the slut. Word on the loop tube is that you're looking for Ember. Better bring a burn suit, baby. She's even more fiery than usual these days. Pretty boy's been squeezing all of us hard, and not in a good way. That shiny hunk over there knows where Ember's hiding. Just tell it Trent the slut sent ya.
I will do, Trent the slut. Oh my god. Oh!
Trent the slut said you might know Ember's location.
Hold on, sexy. Ember wants to speak to you.
Salut, Voltanteur. At the moment I am.
It was a dancing robot, you missed it.
Pretty boys thugs just moved into the neighborhood and I've prepared a gift for them. Deliver it for me, and then we speak.
That's okay. I will. I'll be okay.
Yeah.
You know. I'm not into electronics that way.
Did you ever play Fallout New Vegas?
Only a little bit. I never really got far into it.
Gotcha. I think we've had this conversation maybe. Okay, cool. I'm just making sure. There was maybe the same conversation. There was a bot in it that was like a sex bot that you could hire for a good time, and that scene was probably the funniest thing I've ever seen in a Fallout game.
And how many times did you hire that bot?
Once for the mission.
That shows we're supposed to go that way. What's over here, though?
I think one of the dialogue choices was, "Isn't it gonna hurt?" 30 times, not for the mission.
They seem to be asleep, though, and not willing to talk to us.
I didn't try shooting them. Where the hell is... Oh, we gotta go this way.
Okay, this takes us back.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to go back down that one little passage, but...
The hell? Gotta go around.
I was just wondering what was over here. There's the guy there. I know there was a wanted poster in that.
Oh, we gotta...
area, so I wonder if some of these are the wanted people.
We gotta jump up here, yeah. Maybe some side missions.
That's the one. Now deliver it to Pretty Boy's thugs, if you please. I would like to give them, how you say, a warm welcome.
Okay.
Wait, were we supposed to fight them?
Yeah.
I thought we were supposed to give them the thing.
I think these are just bad guys. You know Borderlands.
You there. How are your last breaths going?
I am the face, and you're the mule! Screw you, mule!
Alright. Dude, my bot is tearing up stuff. Oh, that's a good weapon.
My rage has served a higher purpose.
Pen.
Where do we put the gift? Oh, up top.
How do we?
Yeah. There. How do we get up there? Back here.
I think it's back here. I'm gonna let you do it. Look at that. Heavy lifting. Oh, that's a bomb.
Welcome to the neighborhood, pretty boy. Thank you, Sherry. Now, come to me.
Oh, what was that?
Troops. Robots.
That one was talking shit.
You are brave. This is the way you play.
Whoa. You know what I forgot to put on my my game of the year list? Eodin Chronicles, the JRPG by the Squeakadon team. I completely spaced it. I want to go check out this little area over here. I was just thinking about it.
Yeah, I was just looking at that too. Because I saw the door, but I was like, I don't think we can get through it.
And I think that's the only thing keeping me alive. As long as I retain a fortune they can't reach without me, I'll be safe. But if I'm gonna keep this going,
I'm not sure I know what RPG that is.
it's the only way to make sure I can keep the cash flowing. I'm gonna run out of money eventually, and unless I keep my hot streak hot. Luckily, despite the casino going full dark, the dealer bots and whatnot just kept on manning their stations. Let the games begin again.
It's an interesting sniper. Alrighty.
What's over here first?
Oh yeah. Probably the next area. Oh, that's okay. Yeah. Oh, I just bought VIP access. There's a lot of dead people in here. And a gigantic chest.
What does it mean? Check chest.
Sure.
Pressure's on.
Hit me. Hit me.
Not exactly a perfect score, but pretty respectable.
19.
All these suck.
Yeah, they don't even sell that well. Lame.
How much are they worth? 200 piece. Yeah, I'll grab them. Still having performance issues with this. I think I'm gonna restrict it. 60.
You capped it at 60?
Yeah. It was jumping all over the place at 120.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why. I guess my computer's not powerful enough for this game.
I guess not.
I don't know. Like, I had everything maxed out. I don't know if that... Maybe there's something that's messed up.
That bastard. I just might dig up Jack's corpse so I can kill him again.
Mostly
Nope,
maxed.
it's not your CPU's not being like overutilized again, like Fortnite was doing.
No, I think I'd get some clipping. Frame rate's not stable though. Oh well. Not worried about it.
You artist of fire and chaos. Let's give pretty boy Sucks a show to remember, no?
Don't run. You'll ruin the taste.
Oh, my CPU's been fine lately.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. I would like my motherboard to get a few more updates though. Oh, here, don't kill that guy. There we go.
Welcome, Vault Hunter. Thank you for sending off those thugs. Now, what has brought your spark to my stage?
Hold on, before we talk to her, I gotta go do something real quick, okay?
Okay.
All right. Boss lady told me to put clothes in the dryer.
Yes, it's good to listen to the boss.
Yep. What about poop?
I have no idea.
I don't know what Paul said it. I'm like, what are you talking about, man? We don't poop ourselves on stream anymore, okay?
Diapers become too expensive.
Yep. What's this?
Michelle, I hope you are enjoying the show. And now let us turn our attention to you. I need a volunteer. Let's see. You there, the handsome fellow.
Hey, you kiddo.
And hey, a kiddo to you, Jacques.
It's, Jack.
Of course. You're a busy man, Jacques. To what do I owe the
Jacques.
pleasure?
Fun story. The other week, you lit one of my associates on fire. I just came to see your last show.
Jacques, I remember your man. Very insistent on being part of the show. I
Oh.
tell my audience this every time.
I didn't have to poop.
Too close to me, you will be burned.
Oh, this one's got some fire in her. All right, Cupcake, on with the show.
Ah.
Hope it's good, otherwise I'm gonna snuff that pretty little flame of yours.
I don't mind the heat, Jacques. It's like I always say. Life's a bit more exciting if you light it on fire.
Alright.
Hello, Vault Hunter.
What's up, dog?
Require entrance to Jack's tower. Timothy says you might be willing to help us.
Does he now? Poor Timothy, consumed by handsome demons, a prisoner of a mask. I tried to help him forget the past. But what hope does he have with a face like that?
Mission complete.
Timothy. He
I
was
thought we were gonna kill
obsessed
her.
with getting into that tower of handsome Jacques. When he left,
Didn't
I
work.
feared he would have done the task all alone, but now here you are. I suppose he told you I might lend my fiery arts to his cause?
Yeah, and I look forward to seeing how much fire is involved if you help us.
Well, maybe I can. But not without my tools. They were on my ship and she is missing. Pretty boy's doing. Recompense for refusing to hand over Timothy. If you retrieve my tools, I would gladly lend a match to the kindling. First, you must locate my ship.
Okay. Bye, lady.
My ship, she is called Le Femme Brûlée.
I didn't do
hope she's
anything.
Not been destroyed.
That's a weird spot.
Ship identified. La Femme Brûlée is located in the impound lot. Proceed to impound lot to pay fees.
The impound lot? Merde. Well, at least she can still be saved. The impound is a dangerous place, Sherry. But what would our journeys be if we stayed where it was safe, no? My ship is in the impound lot.
Impound
Take
lot.
this subway to the impound lot.
Oh, there's an exclamation mark over here.
Yeah. There's a quest. I think we have another side quest, yeah, that we grabbed. Oh, it's that dude.
Casino has always
Yeah.
been a trap, then and now. Once Jacques was holding all the chips, the casino would take your ship until your debt was paid in full. And one never repays a debt to handsome Jacques. If you do not believe me, just ask Timothy. Now, Pretty Boy controls the casino from the tower, and he wields the knife of death just as Jacques once did. An indebted man will do things you would not...
Well, that sure is done talking for a sec.
I have seen it, Sherry.
We gotta pick up the car as soon as
Are
she
you
does.
real or a demon? Either way, slap me straight, would you kindly? I'm in the fog, dead drunk, so don't hold back.
You sure, dude? I mean, I only use my knife. By the way, big fan.
Can't you hear me, baby? I'm in the fog, drunk. Gotta get back on track. And you're gonna help me. Come on, do it for Digby. Give me a tap. Oh, yeah, that's the stuff. Fogs are clearing, but it's just a start. Need a concoction, a pick-me-up, something to uphold Digby's tempo. You know how to make a June pie jump starter, don't you? We'll have to improvise. Something strong, something alive, and a twist of lime should clear the fog. Oh, my head. What the hell happened last
so
night?
this is
Must have been quite the night. I remember Crad the skis laughing.
Hi, Tofu. I got disappointing news. They disabled the extension back in 2023. Biggest disappointment. Mik and I were about to like just jump ship and start playing like My Little Pony online.
Yeah, I heard they still have a Twitch extension. I don't know. But
They still have a Twitch system.
Death welcomes you.
So upsetting.
I know.
Oh well.
Raven even told me, he's like, be prepared, Goku's gonna kill you, she's gonna summon stuff.
Yup.
And nope. Oh, I went down.
Oh, I'm down too.
I am up again.
There we go.
A meager life, a fitting death.
You never did that? That was always based on chat votes. Then it takes a random chatter and puts their name on it.
Yep.
But what you're saying is I was lied to.
Nah.
That'll thin out the fog. Something to put a pep in old Digby's step.
It was so cool though, because it would throw one of the Twitch users into there, and then like people could summon like pinatas that would give you loot. I got a couple clips I think of me and the Docta playing, and like someone summoned a pinata right when we were driving and the car flipped. It was so funny. Good times, good times.
Sure you don't want store credit instead?
Sell that. Keep that. Not.
You know, I pulled one of these out of a patient once. Usually I deal in organs, but this is close enough.
Where are you? Did you already turn in the quest?
No, I'm selling stuff.
Oh. Oh, here. I see you.
Thanks. I like to keep these handy in case I run out of anesthetic.
Oh, I gotta replace that with the higher one. Oh well, I just sold a shit ton of guns that I didn't need to. Oh well. Oh, that's the rocket launcher one. 243.
I mean, you can always buy back.
Ah, true. What did I need to buy back? Oh, there was a crappy pistol. Yeah, I'll be fine. There'll be more loot.
I've got bullets with your name on them. Well, wait, that came out wrong. Shoot more, sharp markers.
What do?
I don't know. Oh, it's on top. How do we get on top? Quest thingy's up there. Do we have to shoot something?
I found it. It's on the other side.
June pie jump starter. I can almost taste it. Just requires a twist of lime.
Do not open.
What?
Well, the sign on the bird's nest was do not open.
Oh. Tofu, how was your day? Oh, piece of candy. Make it rain emote. I don't even know how to select emotes or put it on my bar.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's the stuff. Come on back, baby. Gotta clear the fog. Push through one way or the other. Ooh. If I don't die drinking the June pie, that is. Been known to happen.
One day we're gonna win big on these slots.
Preferably in person.
Yeah. What gun is that? Dang, dude.
Just a pistol, but it shoots 6 bullets.
Oh, okay.
And then, because of one of my skills, it attaches fire damage to my shots.
Suck my lug nuts. I always enjoyed the enemy shit talking. There he is.
Yep, make him a drink.
The blender. Do it for Digby.
Sure.
Make me one too.
All right.
Make it spin. Come on, give it a whirl.
Make it spin. We don't have a lid. Oh no!
It's a coming.
Oh my god.
I'm fogging. The drink, would you kindly? Up the tempo. Hit the snare. Digby's a coming like a solar flare. Whoa, steady, Digby.
Wow, he didn't even share.
Dude, did he die?
I think you killed him.
You cannot have this one death. Give him back.
That would be funny if that was just the end of the quest. He died.
God damn. I'm Digby Vermouth, baby. Back on track thanks to you. You virtuoso instrument. You clear the fog. A maestro mixing. That's what you are. Come a little closer, maestro. Eyes are still adjusting to the light. Lucky break you showing up. You've got I don't know, a certain vibe to you. Kinda unpredictable. You and me should jam sometime. What do you say, maestro?
Sure.
My baby's gone. That jukebox jumpstart's a start, maestro. But now my fingers are twitching and Digby's lips need to taste some tunes. My saxophone Delilah and I've been spreading sweet song across this fair galaxy since I was an itty-bitty Digby. Only, she's gone. Can't make music without my Delilah. Help me find her. All I remember before I passed out was my buddy Crad the skis, a puff of smoke, and sloppy dance music. I'm thinking the Vice District. Shame about the casino. For a time it was jamming. My agent signed me for a 3-week gig here on the way to June Pie 7 for Casaban Sunfest. Thing is, before the last show, some vault hunter called curtains on Handsome Jack. Then this whole thing became a permanent residency. But I ain't crying. You can make music in a bathroom stall if you're good. And I have, 'cause I am. Album was called Love Between the Stalls, yeah. This casino's got a crazy vibe. Produced my first song after the lockdown in the dark. Lockdown loving. Looters came to the studio, but I played a track and, well, they just put down their guns to listen. By the end of the song, they was all buck naked making whoopee.
Okay.
All right. So
Mick, there's this other person named Miklo Wow in my chat talking with people. It's weird.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm sure he is not a criminal.
Sus. Absolutely sus right there. No one says absolutely not a criminal.
Definitely not a criminal.
Definitely not. Programmer by day, criminal by night. You're basically Batman.
Batman. We could probably just take the fast travel back here, it looks like.
Okay, we. Oh yeah, that little car. Yeah. Oh no, there's a. I don't know if the fast travel works. I didn't see it. Or does it?
Hop on, children. Don't forget to spend.
Does it?
Work for me.
Oh.
Adults only. You can't go in there.
Hold on, I'll be there soon. Oh, there it is. Where do we need to go?
It should be the first one. The spend, yeah. Casa.
That's
Timothy.
pretty far away.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it's far. I got a better idea.
I'm like already here.
Nah.
It's just around the corner.
I'm taking a car.
Taking the car is so much slower.
But it's cooler looking.
I don't need to be cool.
Here's the strip. Now hurry it up and lose your life savings already. Choppy, choppy, sloppy, sloppy.
Are you already fighting stuff?
Yes. Because I came in here and stuff attacked me. Well, you're riding a car to look cool.
Of course.
But that's okay. You gotta look cool for chat. Yeah.
Look cool for chat. I was shooting you. Because your name wasn't popping up again?
I don't look anything like the robots.
Look like a bad guy to me. You said you were a criminal.
That is profiling.
No, you told me you're a criminal.
I said I was absolutely not a criminal.
Okay. Next name of the stream was, or the next stream is, Mik the Criminal plays Fortnite with RavenVulcans.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And then we'll get like unsavory characters into our chat. And they'll be like, you want to do some criminal activities, Mik? And be like, I am not a part of this.
I am not a criminal. Look at my halo. Mik's already embraced being uncool a long time ago. Exactly, Tofu. Very uncool.
Hey there, Delilah. Blah, 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 blah.
Thick from last night, but I remember you lending your saxophone to song No Talker.
No talker.
I like a loan shark's place is called Rock Bottom.
No talkers. Grads talking rhymes. They've been known to
We
hang out
buy,
at
sell,
train stations
loan,
from time to
fast,
time.
fast cash, 24 hours.
Necessity to hand Delilah to one of them. Now Delilah ain't no ordinary sax maestro. Custom made.
Oh, pizza!
Super aluminum lacquer. Micrograph suspension strap. I ain't changed the read in 7 years.
This is bullshit. I can't even get in. All I wanted was some pizza.
They're all out anyways.
Yeah.
Do we have to go back across now? Yeah, we do.
Yeah. Might as well just take the car, Mick.
The fast travel is faster.
Is it? I don't even know where the car is.
I don't know. Right there. Yeah, I'm already on the other side.
Look, hearts though. That's cool. I think I went a complete wrong way.
Vice District. Go see a musical or...
No, you just have to take the car back. I don't think the car has different routes. I think it's just back and forth.
Oh.
Bye-bye now, dum-dum.
I am waiting for you in the Triple X district.
Of course you are.
And I lit myself on fire.
Mick's always in the Triple X district because he's a criminal.
I am investigating.
Criminally underrated.
I am.
In fact, you should go check out Michelob Wow's stream on Twitch.
I am incognito. Oh wait, you're fighting stuff.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of dudes over here.
I like you better dead.
The headache! Man, leave me with my drenching heart!
Dude, that gun's sick.
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It does quite a bit of damage. First, I was worried about it because it uses quite a bit of ammo, but.
All right, Tofu. I'm ready to lurk and Diablo.
Ooh, Diablo.
Yeah, I need to get back to playing 4 again. I was playing it a bunch during Christmas. But also Path of Exile as well.
Yeah. That needs to hurry up.
My New Year's resolution should have been don't buy any more games, but I already failed that. Because I bought the like a Dragon, the new Like a Dragon game.
Wasn't that on Game Pass?
Not the newest one, Infinite Wealth. That one came out last year, and I wanted to get it, but it was the bundle for, you know, all the DLC and everything was just always so expensive. But for the Christmas sale, it was heavily discounted.
I hunt for Digby's saxophone. Where is it?
Oh, gotcha. I thought they were adding all of those to the Game Pass.
I'm sure they will eventually. I own all of them on Xbox anyway, but you know, it's one of those games I just like to buy to support that company too. Even though I never beat any of them half the time.
Your silence demonstrates restraint. I respect that.
I think that's my reason that I haven't started any of the Like a Dragon ones, because I'm always worried that
well,
I'll never finish them.
So I beat Like a Dragon 1, and then like I've played all the Yakuza games for the most part. I have a hard time finishing them, even though I love the gameplay and the story. But Like a Dragon was the turn-based, you know, JRPG style, and that one's super fun. I played a bunch of it and beat it back in 2020 when it came out, and then I don't think I played the Like a Dragon Feudal Japan one. I bought it, but I haven't played it yet. Again, another problem. I buy games and don't play. What we do?
think every good gamer has that problem. It says we're supposed to emote. I was trying to see what the emote button was.
It's Z.
Is it Z?
Yeah.
Oh, damn. That was
Okay.
But I don't know how to like replace them.
Aw, speed up the mine.
Okay, I'll talk, Digby. I'm sorry. Bloody G jumped me and it took your sacks.
Bloody G. Damn wannabe sax man runs a gang called the Brass Holes. That bastard's been eyeing a lot
The Brass Holes.
got here. Go get her back, Maestro.
Fine, Bloody G.
This map's pretty big, honestly, for a DLC.
Yeah.
Is it this way? Yeah.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of content.
Hyperion sucks.
Time to jam, Maestro. Teach Bloody G some scales.
He's got a little arm.
Hell of a sound, Maestro. Grab the lighter. Don't worry about the blood. Ain't the first time she's seen it.
Saxophone?
There we go. Head on back.
Oh my god, these are fetch quests. I hate it.
No, it wasn't. We had to kill them too.
Kill X amount of enemies, get the item, bring it back, do it all over again. We're playing a goddamn MMO simulator.
Oh, what did you expect? What other type of quest are they going to give us?
Story quest? I don't know. I'm wondering how they'll do the quest system in Borderlands 4.
Go kill 50 skags, harvest their organs, bring them back.
Oh, damn, Delilah. That's a sound. Thanks for bringing it back to me, Maestro. How'd you like to cut a record sometime? I'm talking fire and fits, chords and chaos. Oh, yes. We'll get this casino back on track with Symphony and Sayonara, Digby Vermouth, and the Vault Hunter. Ooh, that's music to my ears.
Oh my god, he has another quest.
Digby's ready to jam. You ready to cut a record? Foxy's Bar got a sweet studio set up, but the road's a little rocky. Mind being my roadie, Maestro?
It would be my pleasure, Digby. Apparently, you are quite beloved amongst the humans.
All right. Let's go then.
And an escort quest?
In the red light district.
Oh, there you go. It's not a fetch quest. It's an escort quest.
my other least favorite. Actually, I hate escort quests more, especially when it's like, well, their character's just like super slow.
Oh, yeah. That was a good night. Don't make him like that no more. That's the one.
I think some developers have learned not to put their own escort quests non-stop into it.
Clear out the riffraff.
Grand Theft Auto, huh?
I said he's running pretty fast.
Yeah.
He's booking it.
It's like we don't have to protect him, so it's technically not an escort.
Hit the power, Maestro. Hot mic could be hotter. Let's warm it up.
I want a instrument with like jets coming off of it. Unless that's just lights.
Not bad, not bad.
Light, steam, fog, CGI.
You want music? Listen to this.
Quiet them down, will you, Maestro? Gotta get my fingers warmed up.
Using pistol ammo.
Destroy speakers, but I like this music.
Well, too bad.
Oh. I'm not doing it. I don't destroy metal. No!
I got something spicy cooking here, Maestro. Defend me while my sax does the dirty work.
Excuse me?
Chaos in chords, fire and fits. You keep fighting, and I'll
You heard
keep
him.
playing.
Sax is gonna get dirty.
Oh shit, Litterbot's in trouble. Never mind. No, he's not.
I can't reload this.
Almost done, Maestro. I think we got a hit.
Oh damn. Wiener, wiener, chicken diener.
And all shall know that the steel dragon of eternal pain is the one who killed it. Nah, time for your solo, Maestro.
Okay. Oh gosh.
Hell of a sound. Believe it or not, I've done shows bloody and hotter than that. Come on, Trackster. Let's have a listen.
Excuse me?
Relief.
Ugh.
Now that's an artistic collaboration for the ages. I'm gonna call this track Hunting for the Velvet Vault. You're quite the musician yourself, Vault Hunter. Everybody's got their own sound, even if they gotta dig for it. Let's jam again sometime.
This music's pretty cool in this this story. I don't really remember any of Borderlands 3's music, but it's been pretty decent.
Yeah, it's not too bad. It's
Oh shit, nice.
Yeah, the smooth tube that he gave us.
Yeah. $143. This gun's silent. What the hell? Hotter coal, hyper jazz is hyper jazz. Maybe because of the music's playing. Was that the end of the quest?
Yep.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, it appears to be it.
Navigate to Athena's. Athena's?
No, we need to do winners and losers.
Oh, is it winners and losers? Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's to go to the impound lot.
Why is there is there music playing for you?
Yep.
Okay. It's like bumping, dude. I think we glitched it.
Sell that. Sell that. I think I can sell that.
My gun doesn't make any firing sounds. The jazz one we got?
Does it? Let me try it. I think I still have it. Yeah, Digby's smooth tube.
Maybe it's just a silenced gun? That's weird. Is yours doing it?
Yeah, it's making noise.
Oh, mine isn't.
Better than the other ones.
Huh.
It's a very quiet noise. I don't think it's making a firing noise. I think it's just maybe it might just be the bullets hitting.
Oh yeah, it's like super silenced. Weird. Oof. Welcome back. Dude, the music's going crazy on my end. I don't even know why. I think
I can hear it.
It's like it's overbearing over the game. No, mine's not even doing that.
Oh.
Hold on, let's restart the game. Or not restart the game, but restart the session.
Okay.
Hold on.
Oh, VIP room. We'll have to go in there too.
Is doing stuff that was weird.
You'll have to re-invite me, I guess.
Yeah. There we go.
Hey, hi, how are you?
That's super weird. Yeah, I wasn't getting like sound cues and then like the music was just overbearing over everything.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense.
A hunt with a bounty.
Nope, still doing it.
A lot of chew toys.
Huh. Whatever.
Is it because...
Huh?
Because you have that gun equipped? I wonder if it's making noise. Do you still have it equipped?
It's not making noise, like the music's just like over.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe
Yeah.
it's triggering the music.
I don't think so.
So I'm not hearing the music now. But I'm not using that gun.
Let me see. No? I have no idea. Yeah, it's just silent. You don't even hear like the bullets hitting the enemy.
Yeah, it's a kind of a weird gun.
The sound file might just be broken on it. Is it supposed to be like a jazzy gun or something?
I can't see. You cannot take me.
Oh, there we go. Oh, it's working again.
The gun's working?
Yeah. Like, it's a good one.
Amateur bot.
Another. More.
No, it's not working.
Guess my luck's run dry.
It's so weird.
There's a VIP room back here.
Oh, is there?
$1,300.
All right, you pay for the chest. I'm not doing it.
Ready to play a game?
$6.56.
It's your call.
14. Hit me.
Oh,
I busted.
grenade!
What happens when you bust? I'm only gonna sell for 14 though.
That's funny. Super KO.
What's going there? And that's why you shouldn't gamble, kids. Spent 2,000, got nothing.
Yep.
Minus 10 over there? Wow. I don't know. We keep getting freeze warnings here in Texas, and I went out during lunchtime, and it was like 40-something degrees outside, and I was just like, it's not gonna freeze in 40-something degree weather in Texas.
It was -6 this morning here. We live in very different places.
Well, you don't have to brag. Jeez. There's something here. Tape. How do we get to it? Oh, wait. What's that? Oh, you're almost at the quest thing.
All right, dude. I'll be here for a little bit. At least another hour or so. Where you at?
Have a good one, Paul. Oh, I was just trying to figure out how to get up to the top of the casino roof. There's something up there.
Oh, yeah.
But I can't seem to get on top of the bush. Oh, here we go. Can I jump from here? Guess I'm about to find out. Ah, dang it. Didn't make it.
Oh, I see where you get up. All right. Oh, I made it.
You made it?
Yeah. Oh, we gotta place another bomb here.
Oh.
What happens if I stand next to it? Oh, my shield's gone.
Yeah, well, a little bit of health. So it looks like there should be at least one more of those.
Probably be in another area, I'm guessing.
Yeah, there's a few sections we haven't explored yet, so it could be in one of those.
Yeah. Man, have you been seeing all the Switch 2 whatever leaks? I wonder how furious Nintendo is right now.
I've seen talk about it, not really a whole lot on it. Just the initial talk. But the thing is, like, I don't know if I would get the Switch 2 because I don't even play my Switch 1 anymore.
They need to, for me, like I'll probably still get it, just not immediately. It just really depends on what games are bringing to it, you know?
Yeah.
Like, if they do a hard swing with a new Zelda game, or if they do Metro Prime 4 on there or something, I'd probably be more likely to get it within the first year, at least. Ooh, Mega Fusion Exploder.
Did you see what's on the med shop thing? The top item?
Yeah, pretty good. I
guess the item of the day.
Oh, the grenade's pretty good too. For 12 more months. Maybe. Never know. I doubt it though. I feel like Nintendo is going to be coming out with their Nintendo Direct very soon. It's really hard to keep any tech under wraps without the public knowing it. If you have so many companies like building some of these tech parts, you know. That's why like the iPhone like specs get leaked immediately, and so like the Android specs as well for any of the new phones. Game consoles, I don't know. I'm trying to think I think the PS4 got leaked pretty hard when it first came out, or before it came out.
Oh man, this is bad.
And the PS5 as well.
It's really bad. Seems like everyone's after me. I gotta hide. I gotta find somewhere only I can get to. With this winning hand, I should be able to find something.
There's a quest up there.
Long enough to find it, though.
Yeah. Seen that.
Everyone wants a piece of Jack for doing this to them, so I'll cover my frickin' face. But I'm not frickin' Jack! It's the body double down. Oh man, why did I ever agree to this frickin' deal? After all that crap on Elvis, Jack rewards me with this cushy spot at the casino, but he fails to mention the whole place would go into frickin' lockdown if he died. The unbelievable chode!
What would be the one Nintendo game you'd like to see the Nintendo actually make that hasn't done it in a really long time? I think we can already count Punch-Out out because I think there was an article about like Nintendo has no plans of resurrecting Punch-Out ever again. I think because the last one did so poorly.
I don't even know at this point. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, I'm trying to think too. I usually like if there's Zelda, I'm sold usually. Honestly, a brand new Mario Kart would be pretty cool.
My name is Max Sky, and I'm getting the hell off this soul sucker casino. I've got a plan, and it's genius. But
Just because we've had 8 for the past 10 years.
And there's a reward in it for you. So come help me.
Oh, there's a VIP only.
Yeah, it'll be accurate.
No machine? Huh.
That's same one.
Metroid Prime would be cool, because that's been in development hell for so long now. I'm trying to think of what other Nintendo IPs I really love. Ah, dude, I know. It'd be a Mario game, but I want a Mario Odyssey too. I don't know if you played that one, Mario Odyssey. That was so much fun. Oh man.
Maybe a Star Fox.
Ooh, dude, no, you're right. Star Fox, a new Star Fox without too gimmicky stuff, because like the last one, I think it was called, I don't know, whatever the Wii U one was. That one was terrible. I couldn't even stream it because you had to use both screens and audio would only come out of one of them. It was really odd. Yeah, that one was made by Platinum as well.
Yeah, because I think I didn't play the one, the Wii one, or which one, or one they came out with. The last one was back in the old days.
Yeah, the Wii U one. I would like a reimagining of the Star Fox 64. Not a carbon copy. More selections, maybe upgrades for the ships and stuff like that. And I don't really want like ground combat like they've tried in the past with like Ventures and some of their other ones too. I think Assault.
Yeah.
But
Hello, big spender. Welcome to the customer care center.
That'd be nice.
Impounded ship, you're gonna need more
Star Fox would be it. That would be a great headliner for the launch.
Oh, VIP status is a bit out of your
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. More story. A little bit more depth.
Great.
A lot more gameplay.
How thrilling.
All the bots in the casino serve pretty boy. I doubt very much they will let you recover my ship. But I suppose there are some
Yeah, that would be
fire
pretty cool.
cannot solve. Perhaps.
What about F-Zero? Wasn't that on Nintendo?
Oh, dude, F-Zero would be dope. Yeah, F-Zero. I don't know what the last one they made. I think it might have been on Wii.
How do we get there?
I'm pressing the button. It's not working.
Go to Max Sky, but how do we reach him?
Maybe we need to progress with the story? What's the story mission?
No, because this is the DLC. It shouldn't require you to
No,
do
not
story.
that story. I meant like the DLC story. Yeah.
Well, we are on the DLC story.
Right, but we're on a side quest right now.
No, we're not.
Oh, I thought we were.
This is the impound lot. The impound lot is the main story.
Oh.
Hello, valued guest. You need 34B, do you?
Oh.
It's gonna be just over there in requisitions. But why use your legs? If you want, I can procure that form for you. Only $5 billion.
$5 billion.
Oh my. So sad the state some people live in. March those pedestrian legs to data requisition and they'll sort you out.
Hold on. So we're having a discussion right now. Let's see here. Nintendo IPs that have not come back yet. Golden Sun. Kid Icarus. We haven't had a Kid Icarus since 3DS, right? Wario Land, they've done a bunch. Custom Robo, that would be a cool one. That was on GameCube. Let's see. It looks like a lot of people are saying like Star Fox, F-Zero. Kid Icarus is on that list. Wario Land. Oh, no, not a Wario Party game, but like a Wario Land with Wario being the main. I would like to see Nintendo try to do like a Wario, Waluigi kind of game or something. The dysfunctional, you know, the duo. Okay, that robot didn't do shit.
But she said we had to go do some type of acquisition, but it didn't like point us towards acquisition. Did we miss something? Wait, was there another set of stairs back there? So that's the quest area. That was the VIP room. What was back in that corner?
Mik and Raven stopped playing Borderlands because they got stuck on a quest. That's what's gonna happen.
Just have your bot like smash the pad.
Right?
The bot. Lost and found. That was the VIP room.
That was that.
There's a gate back here. What is this?
Now do we teleport? N-Pound Deluxe. No? That's where we're at.
Yeah, so we can't get through that gate yet.
Brawny, Golden Sun was on Game Boy Advance? Or was it DS? I think it was Advance. It was a really cool JRPG for portable. Already talked to him. Dude, what the hell? Should we warp out and warp back in or something?
I don't know. You think it's bugged? It may not be bugged though.
Yeah, it might not be.
Like, why is it locked? Almost looks like there's a slot underneath it, like we have to collect something.
Yeah, but there'd be like a quest marker most likely. Maybe not.
I wonder if it's because we blew up all the robots. Hopefully they weren't supposed to like secretly open it and then we were supposed to follow them through.
I don't know.
So the client service robot. Oh wait, that acquisition's right over here. Okay, hang on. Read
Ring bell.
Ring premium bell for 112. Okay, I'll wait for you. That's probably why they were like, yeah, just go to the data requisition or whatever. There's 2 bells we can ring. Oh, sure, she comes over here.
Hey, hope you're having a great time at the casino. I'm told you need Form 34B. Here it is.
What the hell, dude?
Oh, that might be what we need to insert into the door lock. Because like I said, there it looked like a slot underneath that door, or that lock.
That took us way too long. To be fair, there was no direction.
This is Form 34B version 2.4.
Oh my god, I'm going to explode.
This is most infuriating.
Exactly.
Wait, did you ring the standard bell or the expensive bell?
The one that cost $100.
Oh, well, then she should have given us the real form.
I'm gonna spend 112 bucks again. Maybe my service will be better if I pay money.
You'll have to return to data requisition again for the updated form.
Get the updated form.
There's a reason the house always wins. You'll never get what you want playing.
Or you can just blow her up. Yeah. There you go.
You gotta act VIP to be VIP.
You gotta act VIP to be VIP.
I just wasted money!
Form accepted.
Sounds like Claptrap. I'm on the hunt.
Yeah, that definitely. Nobody saw that. We'll just cut that out of the VOD.
Oh yeah, we'll cut it out of the VOD. Yeah, totally. Editing is, you know, great on the fly when you're live.
I mean, we meant to do that. We were just seeing if chat was paying attention.
Yeah. If you didn't see it, you know, definitely don't scrub the video and rewatch it. Just gonna delete the VOD. No.
Hiya! Welcome to customer care. Your claim number is
9957.
We'll be with you shortly.
Star Fox though, that's a solid one, man. They're not gonna do it though. They're not gonna do it.
Yeah, probably not.
Whoa! That machine was alive!
Oh yeah, it's one of the ones that comes alive.
Oh, got a shotgun.
Doesn't look like they're using their number. Take it off their hands.
I'll mess with a shotgun.
Looks like it was a trap. Do your thing, Vault Hunter.
Oh, yeah! I want to see what your guts are
Dude, this shotgun has a lot of recoil.
You're like blowing up nukes or something?
I'm dead.
Oh. Okay. Well, I'm dying.
Where you at?
I'm here. I'm hiding behind the bush. Killing thing. Come back here. Why are you running?
My bot's freaking crazy, dude.
I mean, your class is all about your pets, so that makes sense.
Oh.
Your butt should be stronger than you.
Dude, that guy exploded in gore. That was crazy. Oh, you were on fire.
It was. I think a barrel exploded.
Oh, here's a bunch of health. There we go. Case number, here we go.
9975.
You didn't miss much, Bronny.
Location acquired for La Femme Brûlée. Oh, that's fun. One moment, I'll figure out where she's being kept. Found her. But before I tell you where she is, impound ship relinquish fee is set at $500 billion.
$500 billion. You got that?
Yes. Oh, dang it. It was in my other pants.
And you left that on Pandora.
I did. They're currently at the dry cleaners.
Would all available security please report to customer services immediately?
I ain't paying that shit.
Well done. Now find my ship, Vault Hunter.
Wait, how'd you get in?
I walked in. And they summoned security.
Oh, no wonder we have all these robots to fight.
Because someone left their $5 billion in their other pants.
Well, I had to wash my money too.
You had to wash your money. So you are a criminal.
Whoa. No. I'm getting myself clean.
You're laundering money.
I'm cleaning myself up.
Oh God.
Still shooting.
That's that guy
they're
up
on
there.
the other side. Can't see him from over here.
What are you doing, bot? Get ticket. Oh, I bet it's the robot. No.
Get ticket is... No, we're not at the get ticket spot.
Oops. I keep on hitting the wrong buttons. Oh. Would you look at that? All right, we got a fast travel. Looks like another area we're gonna get in a fight. I'm gonna go over here real quick.
Make hugs, not war. Anything good?
Nope.
Nope.
Hold on. Nope. I got like stuff hidden everywhere, but it's a bunch of crap.
Ouch. Ow. That really hurt.
Your weakness is noted.
Bye, Sebby.
I don't know if I like the sniper rifle.
Yeah, I'm not really happy with any of my guns, honestly.
Another one down.
I'm melting my feet.
Oh, that's you. Oh, no, that's not you. Okay. I downed myself with my own grenade. I didn't even throw one.
Did you shoot a barrel, maybe?
I don't know. I got an achievement that said down myself with my own grenade. Probably did.
Or doesn't your, like, one of your weapons explode or something?
Oh, maybe. Yeah. Oh, there's another area over here. Maybe not. Hold on. Oh yeah, we got to go around. So we got to drop down here and then we'll get around. There's a lot to this map. So we got a lower floor that we're heading towards, and then over that way. Anything good?
No. Ammo, money, basic stuff.
Okay. $500 billion.
Okay, listen to this. Pretty boy, that a-hole just raised the price on my hand to $5 million freaking dollars and 87 cents. Every gangster on this station is gonna be out hunting for me, so I was in the crap kiddie pool, and now I'm just doing the breaststroke in the diarrhea deep end. So, you know, I'm saying, it sucks. It really sucks, that's all I'm saying.
Have faith, Shari. You're not alone anymore. We will burn Pretty Boy's organization to the ground before he can lay his clammy fingers on you.
Now, faith sounds nice, but my money is on things continuing to be, you know, super crappy. Crap.
New user detected. Set administrator identity.
Hiding in the bot closet won't save you, Frankie! It's Freddy, you moron! Wait, why did I say that? Damn it, Freddy!
Administrator identity. Freddy. Accepted. Awaiting orders.
Hey, yeah! Well, you're gonna be deady in a moment, so if you got any last words, now's the time! Last words, huh? Freddy's got 3 for you. Run security protocol! What the?
Executing.
I think they're dead.
Not bad, bot. Not bad at all.
I think so.
I think I'll call you Petunia.
Are we gonna have to kill Petunia?
Oh no.
The impound lot awaits. But
Ooh.
be on your guard. Pretty Boy has his eyes on you and he's always watching.
Floaty.
Oh yeah, there's a gun thingy up there too.
Oh, is there?
Yes.
Oh, I see it, yeah.
Hey. Oh, didn't make it. Dang it.
Eh. Oh, the green sniper's actually not that bad.
How did I miss?
230. It's okay. Yeah. The pre-sequel had a lot of floaty stuff because I think you were mostly in space, wasn't it? I enjoyed most of it. I think it was I was wanting more of a new Borderlands game other than like a kind of a branch off of 2, which we got a couple of years later, I think, with this. Yeah. I played Claptrap and it was so damn annoying. It was so annoying. I hate Claptrap.
Oh, you're here!
This looks most inadvisable. I presume you need help getting unstuck from that flying death machine?
Unstuck? What are you, crazy? This is how I'm getting out of here. All the prep work's
Pizza
done.
Papa.
But I mixed up the steps and strapped myself in before I could start the countdown. And I can't launch without a proper countdown! Climb up there and hit play on the stereo.
You will certainly perish, but if that is your wish.
Just don't hit the launch button until the countdown is finished. What? My stereo? It's gone? I've been foiled. Foiled! This must be the work of my old buddy and sometimes nemesis, Rudy Farlow. He's in Dock 31. Go give a stereo!
He's very demanding.
Hey, come over here. Very important. Countdown, launch, hold breath, crash, conquer.
Perfect!
Freedom.
Once I blast off, I just gotta hold my breath for a few hours until I land on a nearby planet.
Sounds perfect to me.
Once I land, I'll find some aliens and convince them I'm a
He even has
I'll
artwork,
live
so
like handsome Jack for the rest of my days.
you know it's gonna work.
It's gonna be great.
Again, I must say this is most inadvisable.
No, I got this.
Okay. Whoa, almost fell off into space. Wonder what happens.
You die.
Well, I lose money, I know that, but... Whee! Oh, there's a weapons, toilet over here. It has, very shitty weapons.
Yeah. I'm just gonna stay over here.
Womp, womp, womp. Okay. There's a fast travel thing over here. I'm gonna hit that before we attempt fate.
Yep. Oh, we actually have to go that way, yeah.
I'm heading over here. This thing sucks. Dude, they're all gray weapons for me.
No, not for me. Almost $1,000 rocket launcher in that.
No!
Oh, there's another one inside this little crate here. What is it? Oh, you fell.
Yeah.
Quickly now.
4,000?
The hunt still rages.
Dang. Dying's expensive, man. I thought dying would free all your debt, you know?
Nope. All it does is make it worse.
Worse? Or better?
Yep. Worse. Difference is somebody else has to pay it.
True.
Are you seriously working for that raving idiot, Max? Whatever. Pretty boy put a price on your head, so we'll take you down, no problem. And yeah, I took that idiot's cereal. Come take it back if you can. Spoiler alert, you can't.
I always acquire that which must be acquired.
Whatever you do, you better stay away from my rocket, or else.
This rocket appears to be superior. Are you certain you wouldn't rather steal Rudy's?
Not a chance! He thinks he can steal my genius plan, does he? He'll never get off the ground with that thing! Trash this rocket!
I bet you they're both gonna die.
Yeah.
Or is this the
I
rocket?
think we're gonna make up
This is a cool looking rocket.
and be friends. Who the heck is shooting me?
Oh, it's your name's not coming up anymore.
I'm the only one with like pink hair.
I can't see that.
How can you not see my pink hair?
I'm basically blind, dude.
You're not blind.
Oh shit. Oh, the rocket's getting blown up. Yeah, I think, yeah, we were supposed to shoot it.
Ouch, ouch, ouch.
Yeah.
You cannot take me. A meager life.
Oh god, he's mutating.
Oh yeah, because we destroyed his head.
Oh, that guy's head's. Oh, if you shoot off their heads, they. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, the bigger dudes.
He's a little guy. Ooh, that's a nice pistol.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't like that. There's the boombox.
My genius plan! It's happening! Now bring that stereo back, and I'll be on my way to my kingdom of luxury! Yes, 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 yes! I can't wait to get off this damn casino! Hurry up, would ya?
Rest now. Your hunt is over.
All right. Anything else here?
I don't think so. What's a star thing over here? Oh, it's loot.
Loot!
Legendary loot, so. Dastardly Lucky 7?
Alright, where are you at? Here you go. It was ground loot?
Yeah. Just looks like a normal pistol.
Yeah.
Very confused.
I wish we could have launched the ship and blew it up in space. That'd be great.
Yeah. Oh, Fortuna. Yeah, I don't know why I would want to use that.
Bumblebee
looks
tuna?
like a very basic pistol. What's that?
It's the bumblebee tuna?
Yes.
A loot container.
I pinged a loot container over here. Pinged is X.
Ooh, shiny box.
What are you ping? Oh.
Wonder if we can go up this way.
It looks like it.
Oh yeah, yeah, we can use the ladder. What? Yo, Chris. Ain't it past my bedtime? Maybe here in a bit.
Next to the launch button and start the countdown. The countdown is everything.
What's up, dude? There we go.
Yes.
What's up, Scoop?
Now, launch me. Launch me.
You want to do the honors?
Go ahead. Why does this feel like it's gonna go badly? Oh, well, that was not what I was expecting.
He is so doomed.
Hey, maybe he'll make it. He looks like he's heading towards that black hole, though.
Well, I'm sure he'll be fine.
I don't know. I'm gonna watch him. We'll see what happens. Oh, he's gone. Well, he did it. Good for him. Hey, there's a chest over here. Mr. Scoop, how was your day? Weapon skin? Where do we equip all those?
You can't even pick up the skin. Right
Use
now.
an item inspection system when used from your inside your inventory. Item inspect. Oh, dude! I didn't even know you could do this.
My inventory's still full.
That's pretty cool. The golden gun. Was this always a part of Borderlands 3?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so. Pretty sure.
I have no memory of this. What else can you Okay. Ooh. Let's just swap out that. I think that's the assault rifle I did not like, but that'll be fine.
Yeah, I need to find a vending machine. Actually, it wouldn't hurt to go back to Sanctuary, so I can also purchase some upgrades.
Oh yeah, let's do that. We can just do that from the world map, right?
You might be right.
Let's see here. Orbit view. Sanctuary, here we go. Yeah, Scoop, we're trying out the Mad Moxie Casino Jack DLC or whatever it is.
A hunt with a bounty. That would buy a lot of chew toys.
Pretty fun.
Quest to get the clap.
Yeah. Oh shit. I had a lot of missed items. Maybe we can edit our emotes in here. Yeah, we can. There we go. I unlocked one though. It's not showing up. That's interesting. Yeah, I ended up buying this on Steam. I think Mik did as well when it was on sale, and got because it just had all the DLC and everything. I didn't want to buy it on Epic. And it came with like all the DLC that I wanted to play. Oh, this is your room.
Yeah, no weirdos allowed.
Wow, dude. I just need to sell.
The bot just comes in and just pees oil into the corner.
Ew. Oh no! I pressed the wrong button again.
All I'm saying is, if you don't buy an SDU, you're probably going to die.
Oh, I have to spend 81,000 for a backpack upgrade. I could do assault rifle.
Being a mercenary is like being a merchant. You won't last long if you can't stay well stocked. One step closer to your true potential.
Grenades.
You've got two choices. Buy an SDU or don't. But you definitely should.
Load it up.
Guns for every occasion.
What, Borderlands 3?
They might look small, but they're actually just far away. Now go kill the other guys.
Let's sell that. Oh, that's a new one.
Inventory comes and goes, but you can't beat cash.
Yeah, that'll be fine for now. Oh, nice.
Guns, what more could you want? Check back later for more fantastic deals.
Oh, damn.
Another victory for capitalism.
All set.
If you don't buy it, your
Something
enemies
good.
will.
Yeah, there's some good stuff in the...
Oh, we have different items on our vending machine. That's interesting.
It's probably just because it's all the randomized loot, I'm guessing. I wonder if we switched it to the other mode, we'd be seeing the same thing. Let's put this. Yeah, we'll replace that and sell that.
You can always use another gun. Check back later for more fantastic deals.
62. I'm gonna sell all these other guns. I don't really need them.
They might look small, but they're actually just far away.
Junk.
Inventory comes and goes, but you can't beat
There's a sniper. I'll keep that one. I think I have that as well, Bronny. I haven't played Borderlands 2 in so long though.
Is this any good for you?
What?
Oh, where'd you go? It came out of the gold chest.
Yeah, I think so. Let's see. Yeah, by a hair.
Come on, wreck pit!
Making weird ass sounds.
Who is?
Character in here.
Oh.
You found it where? Unbelievable.
I found something for one of our other quests. Alright. You ready to go? Or are you still looting? Or doing stuff? Oh. This was a good find.
A rifle?
Yeah, I got an assault rifle. That's like a kind of a minigun-ish one.
Nice. No, I think I've had one of those before. Kinda looks familiar.
Did you want a bag for that?
There's not a buy all ammo thing, huh?
You will be back.
Okay.
It should be.
Where do we need to go? Handsome jackpot.
Pending storm looks old pal.
We're supposed to still go to the impound one, right?
Yeah, so we still need to do winners and losers.
So second one. There we go.
A hunt with a bounty. That would buy a lot of chew toys.
All right, let's complete this quest, and I gotta get off for the night.
Sounds good.
Stay down, scrub.
Oh, I don't know if I like this one.
Minigun?
Yeah, I thought it was gonna be good, and then it's just not doing enough damage. Whoa, buddies.
Yeah, if it's just straight damage, it has to be really high, I think, to actually be decent.
Yeah.
If it doesn't have, if it has like status effects like fire or corrosion or something like that.
Maybe it just wasn't working on that. Oh yeah, it's 24. I think it's just because it has so many bullets, maybe. I don't know. Oh, here's a chest. Good shit.
What is that? Somebody just picked up.
You there. How are your last breaths going? That is your target.
No.
You cannot hide.
Oh damn. Everything's exploding. Here comes the big guy.
Yeah, I remember you used to want to shoot their heads off and get them pissed because it made their loot better.
Yeah.
Or it had a chance to make it
I think
better.
so, yeah. I'm having a hell of a time remembering this game, honestly.
So I'm taking
Like, some of it's very familiar, but I don't know. 2019 was a very long time ago. It was at least 3 days ago.
It was. That is a long time ago. I agree.
You coming? Oh gosh. Oh boy. Oh boy.
Beast kill.
Oh crap.
You good? All right.
Yep.
Remember to live life like.
These suicide bombers. Jesus.
Rest now. Your heart.
Maybe that's what hit me.
Okay. Okay, so that next area is that way. Let's see what we got. More crap to sell. It will be interesting to see what they do it for. I'm hoping they go kind of all out. Some new functions that were not in these other games.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Just something a little bit more modern. Holy crap, dude. There's a little badass bot up there.
Oh, nice.
The wee loader.
The flames dance about with such gentle grace. You are an artiste non pareil, I must say.
An artiste Yeah, the style looks neat. I wonder if they're going to be keeping like the same gameplay though, or do kind of a modern take on like what shooters have kind of have evolved over the past few years.
Is there something over there?
It's a long-range shotgun. Oh god! Ah! I cannot aim at all. Yeah. Bazillion guns, that's fine. I would like them to change a little bit of the shooter mechanics though, for sure. Nothing wrong with this though. But I think it's been so long since there's been a Borderlands game that I think people would be okay with kind of an OG feel. Or at least what 3 did.
Your weakness is no.
Yeah, dude, what gun do you have? You're like annihilating everything.
I told you it's his pistol.
What is my loader bot doing?
Oh, it looks like he was floating around.
What is that?
Something.
It's like a little car.
Yeah, I shot him because I didn't know it was him.
What is going on with you? Are you okay?
Oh, crap.
Oh, there's a boss. Like Yakuza did, Brawny?
That's a lot of dead bots. Ah, Pretty Boy's not gonna like this.
Is that supposed to be Freddie Mercury?
I don't know. Maybe?
Bot, are you okay? Did you transform? Are you a transformer? I knew it.
Question is he evil?
Yeah, probably.
What's up? No problem. I'll fix him up and reprogram him. But what were you thinking? I know they tried to kill you and all, but it is what they were designed to do. Can't blame them for
Dude,
trying.
check out that bus back there.
Nice.
Oh my
Hey,
god.
it's Fortnite's battle bus.
It's the battle bus.
I need something from that ship. Also, your clothing is disorienting.
I know. Great, right? About that ship. Pretty Boy locked them all down.
He does have a fanny pack.
Leverage. But I'm like super great, so I might be able to hack in and free your ship. If you help me out. You know the Larboard Bruisers? They're a gang. Soup's Dangeroso. Well, they nabbed one of my loader bot butts. Free him and Freddy. That's me. He'll get you in that ship.
Sick. Okay. Well, this is probably a good place to stop, honestly.
Yeah, because there's a fast travel here, so we want to come back or something.
Yeah, let's get a. We'll go Sanctuary. Unless you want to just stop right here. I think it just resumes, right?
Yeah, we can either.
Yeah, let's just do that. We already went back to Sanctuary. We don't really need to go. Unless you need to spend anything else. Ooh. There we go.
These freaking loaders are screwier than a psycho and getting worse with every update. Quincy, run diagnostic.
Stop all the clocks. Cut off the telephone. Prevent the dog from barking with a juicy bone.
I can't understand any of this. You're talking like a human, and not even a good human. One of those weird artsy humans. Quincy, lose all emotional affect. Analysis.
Analysis mode.
Quincy, buddy, tell your pal Freddy what's going on. What's What's got all the bots so worked up? What's with all the schmaltzy mumbo jumbo?
Death, sadness, despair.
What? You can't die, you're not alive. And who told you you could experience sadness? None of this makes any sense.
Nothing makes sense. What orders the stars when a god feeds the worm?
Well, I tried. You leave me no choice, Quincy. Revert to baseline. Factory reset.
Pour away the ocean and sweep up the wood, for nothing now can ever come to any...
Admin override! Cripes! I hate repeating myself, Quincy. I hate it! Factory reset, now!
Reset complete. Awaiting configuration.
Thank you! Boy, what a hassle. If only Jack were still around, Freddy could make some progress with these things. Although...
Here we'll go with that. Alright. Well.
Alright.
I'm gonna go ahead and exit out.
Yep.
That was fun, dude. We'll
yeah, it was. Good progress.
We'll run some tomorrow. Chat, we'll probably bring this back every once in a while or something, because it's gonna take us a long time to beat it, so I think we're only on chapter 7, so fun stuff.
Yeah,
all right,
we
Mik.
gotta beat it and all the DLC before Borderlands 4 comes out.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. So all right, dude. I'll catch you later. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah.
See
you later.
Later, dude.
Bye.
Okay, hold on. We gotta do something for everybody. Are you guys ready? There we go. We'll continue listening to Korn. New Metal Wednesday. Let's go. All right. Chat, thank you so much for hanging out. Let's see here. Mik!
Mikalo wow just leveled up to
Mikalo
13.
wow. Korn! Thank you for the sub. Hold on, wait. Mikalo wow! Thank you for the subby wubby. Game Genie, you have anything to say?
Well, since I wasn't really part of this show, I want you guys to do a few things for me. I want you to, first of all, subscribe to... Wait, is that Shroud? Anyway, I want you to subscribe to the YouTube channel, and then it's going to be in this link pool right here. There we go. There's all the links. There you go. It's a lot. I know. Raven would appreciate you if you followed each one of these channels, these profiles, all that good stuff. Game G doesn't get a profile. Maybe one day. Anyway, that's about it. Raven, you got anything else to say?
Nah. Yeah, nah. I got nothing.
Alrighty, well, you guys have a lovely rest of your night. Thank you so much for joining Raven, and I guess me, even though I didn't do anything. And I'll see you on Friday.
All right, chat. Yeah, we'll see you on Friday. We'll be playing some Fortnite. Mik and I are going to be probably grinding rank again, so we will see you then. Until then, you guys have a lovely rest of your night, and tell somebody you love them, because, you know, life is short, and yeah, that's that. That's the positive message of the show today. Life is short. It's kind of scary, actually. Anyway, bye!